We've talked a little bit about cryptocurrencies, about Bitcoin, about some of the regulations that have been popping up, a lot of basically how consumers are going to be impacted by this. I thought it'd be great to bring on an expert who's dealing with this, who's slaying the dragons each and every single day. We're speaking with Alexandra Gaiser. She's the Director of Regulatory Affairs at River Financial, a leading Bitcoin technology and financial services company. She previously worked at the U.S. Treasury Department and holds a degree in politics, philosophy, economics from the King's College and a JD from the University of Texas. Alexandra, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So easy first question. This is the softball one. When did you kind of fall down the rabbit hole? And what was that like when you started learning about Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I think as many of us know, your Facebook wall lasts forever. And in the fall of 2011, a friend of mine from college posted a link to the Wikipedia page for Bitcoin and said, hey, you seem to like economics. What do you think of this? And I was sort of like, wow, I have no idea if it'll work and if it'll catch on, but if it does, it'll be amazing. So kind of from that, I was on a more liberal arts and law path. I do not code, so I regret to say I was not victimized by Mt. Gox, but kind of followed it. And then when I was leaving the U.S. Treasury, the opportunity to work in Bitcoin came up, and I absolutely jumped at the opportunity. Thought it was great.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's back in 2011. That's an old one. I thought I was good in 2012, but that's
functionally the same.
Yeah, it's about the same. And of course, we all have the big dreams of how much we would have spent. But I mean, I remember the early days. The greatest utility was actually using Bitcoin and transacting and sending back and forth. So I go back and look at my old wallets and I sweat a bit, but I've learned, and that's great. All right, so I have a couple of questions here. We've had on in probably the last several weeks, probably more cryptocurrency related people than most people are used to on talk radio. But I think it is the perfect time. It's the perfect opportunity. And often we're speaking with people who are more involved in the DeFi space, decentralized finance. And I wanted to bring you on because you're a bit more in this area of Bitcoin maximalism and really trying to intersect with everything that's happening trend-wise with economics, with inflation, with monetary policy. What is it that to you sort of Bitcoin provides to those people that would like to protect their wealth?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are appropriately nervous when they see inflation hitting 5%. And that's alarming. It means the $100 in your bank account will only buy you $95 worth of stuff. And so I think it's a real disservice to the average American who maybe doesn't have access to sophisticated financial services products. You might be more limited on your real estate investment or on what stocks you can buy. And so a lot of times I think we think the only thing to hedge against inflation is buying physical gold, right? You're sort of the Ron Swanson, you've got piles of gold hidden in undisclosed locations. And that is impractical for a number of reasons. Physical gold is actually very difficult to purchase, and then it's very difficult to store, right? So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it is optimally designed to be a currency and to be a long-term store of value. So unlike the US dollar, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Nobody can change that. So when you're thinking about, what can I do that can't get inflated away? What sort of commodity could I purchase that can't have a market flood when the price goes up? Bitcoin is really the only thing that fits that description and cannot come crashing through your second story because it's very heavy like gold. So I think in terms of storage, Bitcoin is clearly superior. And in terms of technology, you can certainly transact with someone much farther away, much faster if you have Bitcoin than if you have gold, or even in some cases, the US dollar.
So tell us a little bit about River Financial. And one thing I sort of, to contextualize it, there's often a lot of discussion for those who are just getting into Bitcoin, who might come from environmentally friendly circles, who have come to it with the headlines about, mining and the impact on various economies and electricity bills and all the rest. But sort of what River Financial is providing and what you guys are doing is both allowing people to purchase, as far as I understand, but then also having these other options that would include access to mining. What is that like?
Absolutely. So River was started in 2019 in San Francisco. I'm actually sitting in our Columbus office right now. We just opened it last week. And we exist to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin. So unlike a Coinbase or a Gemini, which I like to describe as being wide, you can trade a lot of different cryptos, but that's kind of all you can do. We're going deep. So we are on purpose Bitcoin only. And our view is that Bitcoin has some unique characteristics that make it really well suited to move into the financial services space. So we've started with a brokerage and custody service where you can buy and sell Bitcoin. You can also hold it with us. We are super OCD about security. So your Bitcoin will live in cold storage. It would be very, very hard for somebody to hack it or steal it. And so if you are concerned that you will not be able to remember your passphrase and you'll be down to one try and then your millions of Bitcoin holdings will be lost forever, we sort of take that element out. And then earlier this fall, we rolled out Bitcoin or river mining. So this also takes a lot of the technical aspects and a lot of the confusion out of Bitcoin mining. You need a specialized computer called an ASIC. It probably needs to join a mining pool. If you are somebody like me who did not go to school for anything related to math or science, you're just unlikely to have sort of the time or interest or technical capability to mine. And that means you might be missing out on the ability to generate Bitcoin at a much lower rate. You're always going to have to pay a middleman to purchase it. And I think you lose something in kind of the magic of the network. You don't get to be part of the decentralized network that keeps the open ledger, that keeps Bitcoin secure. So what we've done is allowed customers to purchase a miner. It will live at our co-location facility, and it will mine Bitcoin directly to your River account. So it takes, again, a lot of the difficulty kind of out of that equation.
You're listening to Consumer Choice Radio. We're speaking with Alexandra Gaiser. She's the Director of Regulatory Affairs at River Financial, talking all things Bitcoin and crypto. I just wanted to get a rise out of you for that one. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think this is interesting. A lot of people who get into the world of digital cash, as Satoshi named it, or cryptocurrencies, often faces these different terms. There are a lot of different scams that have evolved from cryptos. There's the Bitcoin maxi space. So what is the kind of difference between Bitcoin maxis and the rest of kind of the crypto world? And why do you think you fall where you do?
Yeah, so I'd actually say everybody agrees, right? So Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin only people would tell you Bitcoin is optimized to be a currency. And the most enthusiastic DeFi bro who's super into Web 3.0 would also tell you like Bitcoin is so boring because it's optimized to be a currency, right? So we actually all agree on what Bitcoin is supposed to do. And it's something different from what Ether is designed to do. It's something different from what Dogecoin or Monero or Zcash are designed to do, right? And so to me, this is just like we have in legacy financial services. A home mortgage and a 401k are designed to do different things. You would never talk about them as though they were all financial products that should be regulated the same way or optimized the same way. You wouldn't have team home mortgage and team hedge fund, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. So I think where I fall is Bitcoin has some really exciting implications for the financial world and for consumers especially. That's not to say Ether is better or worse. It's just different. It's trying to do something different. It's optimized for smart contracts. That's great. Wish them the best of luck. But in terms of a long-term investment and a permanent stored value, and I think the future of exchange, my money's on Bitcoin.
Same, but different. So if I could pull from your legal expertise, because this is a big one. And, what we've covered on our program in probably the last couple of months are some of the regulatory burdens that are being created at state level throughout the United States, at the federal level. There's a lot of shenanigans happening at the IMF and all these other institutions. But what are the kind of regulations that hold back innovative companies that are providing solutions in this space? I think there are a lot of people who just don't know exactly what's needed. We have the image of Bitcoin beginning from people mining on their home computers and just sending transactions back and forth when they're in their living room, but it's a totally different world today.
Absolutely. So I think one of the biggest myths is something that Gary Gensler at the SEC likes to say, which is that Bitcoin is it's the Wild West out there. It's totally unregulated. And that just could not be farther from the truth. We're extremely regulated. We're regulated different ways by all 50 states, plus DC and Puerto Rico. And then on top of that, you have sort of this ever-evolving posturing from the various agencies and sub-agencies at the federal level. So the CFTC, the SEC, various bureaus of the Department of Treasury. And so what you have is actually similar to a lot of industries where you have a patchwork of regulations, some of which are contradictory, many of which overlap. And so here it's, it's a lot of job security for me, unfortunately, as the Director of Regulatory Affairs, but we're regulated state by state as a money transmitter. That is what Western Union does. If you think, gee, that doesn't sound a lot like Bitcoin, I'd probably agree with you. But the upside is there's at least a path to do that. Unlike some of the other stuff, how do you get a bank charter if you're a crypto company? Some states like Wyoming are trying to explore that and create a pathway. In the last administration, there was a little bit of movement on that from the OCC, but I think that is probably on hold for now. So there are a lot of different regulations. Just keeping up with those is obviously a barrier to entry for smaller companies like River. But then waiting for the space to evolve and knowing that whatever it is we've designed, whatever we've done to work within the boundaries as they exist could change at any moment. That is a significant area of risk for us.
Now, we've heard from a few mayors, who are kind of, in my opinion, pandering to the Bitcoin Twitter crowd, that they're going to accept their salaries in Bitcoin. But what are the best kind of jurisdictions that you've seen or political figures who you believe understand this? Because, I'm in this world a bit, and I guess we kind of get saturated and we have this strange position in our mind that, of course, all these politicians get it, but there's got to be only a few people who actually understand this and the potentials of it. Are there any that come to mind, or even any jurisdictions, state level, that are doing this the right way?
Yeah, so obviously I think El Salvador is sort of leading the way on a big national experiment to use Bitcoin as legal tender. Here in the States, you have a couple of standouts. So Senator Cynthia Lummis has been leading the charge for a long time. Hester Peirce over at the SEC published something on GitHub, which I think is perhaps like the gold standard of all time for any politician anywhere. But you're gaining a lot of traction. You've seen with the infrastructure bill having a big pay for on supposedly uncollected taxes on cryptocurrency. A lot more senators got interested in the space. Senator Ted Cruz has been doing a lot. You've seen a lot of movement out of both Austin and Miami. I think in the way that we think of New York as the capital for traditional finance and San Francisco and Silicon Valley as the capital for tech, I think it's likely that Austin or Miami are going to become the capitals for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency.
I love that. Yeah, let's hope for more. Maybe it's even the small towns that are doing it. I know there are a lot of farmer collectives in Texas that are using a lot of great Bitcoin protocols and apps and wallets, kind of creating their own farmers markets. So that stuff is great. Well, Alexandra, it's been a pleasure. We've been speaking with Alexandra Gaiser of River Financial, river.com. Alexandra, thanks so much for joining me and nerding out here for a segment.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.